man or a woman? Sadly, in society, we see instances where one partner is working hard to provide for the family, while the other, out of boredom, seeks comfort in an affair. Even more alarming are cases of infidelity within the family, known as incest, which has led to the downfall of many marriages. Today's story touches on this sensitive issue. A young woman was found dead in her bedroom, but the shocking part is that lying next to her was her father-in-law. The incident hadn't even reached the police yet, but the entire neighborhood was already buzzing with gossip. It's understandable, as the victim's family had long been respected by the community, and no one could believe such a scandalous and immoral event could happen. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Decoder Box.
Welcome to Decoder Box. The trail from that condom and the affair. On August 7,
The trail from that condom and the affair.
Sichuan, China,
On August
received a
7,
report from
1990,
young woman
police in
with a
Guangdong
mysterious
District,
background.
Sichuan,
It was
China,
noted that she had
received
been
a report from
healthy and had
locals
no
about a
history of
young woman
serious
who had
illness.
mysteriously died.
At the time
It
of
was
the
noted that
incident,
she had been healthy
there
and
were
had
only
no
two
history
people in
of
the
serious
house, the
illness.
victim and her
At the time of
father-in-law.
the incident, there were only
were
two
found
people
lying
in the
on the same
house,
bed,
the
in a
victim and her
compromising
father-in-law. They were found lying on the same bed, in a compromising position. Although the father-in-law admitted to the affair with his daughter-in-law, he fiercely denied being responsible for her death. However, with only two people in the house, could anyone believe he was innocent?
On August 7,
Around 7
police
a.m.
were
on
alerted by a
August
neighbor of
7,
the victim.
police were alerted by a neighbor of the victim. The first person to discover the scene was the victim's husband, along with a middle-aged male neighbor. At about 6 a.m., when they entered the house, they found a man and a woman lying together in bed. Initially, the husband was enraged and tried to wake his wife, but soon realized something was wrong and discovered that her heart had stopped beating. The neighbor immediately rushed to call the police. The scene was in the father-in-law's bedroom. The room was tidy, but the bedsheet was crumpled, and the pillows and blankets were disheveled. The police found a used condom on a table near the bed, and some of the victim's clothes scattered on the floor. There were no signs of struggle or violence in the room. The windows were shut, and the curtains drawn, creating the perfect cover for the illicit affair between the father-in-law and his daughter-in-law. The victim was found lying on her back, her eyes closed, but the expression on her face showed signs of pain. Her husband mentioned that when he found her naked, he quickly fetched a dress to cover her. Further investigation revealed evidence that she had engaged in sexual intercourse before her death. The autopsy showed that the victim had suffered injuries in sensitive areas, confirming that she had been intimate with her father-in-law before she died. In addition, a strange phenomenon was discovered. The victim had red rashes on her skin, particularly around her neck, chest, and genital area. Initially, her death was believed to be caused by suffocation or excessive stimulation. However, further blood analysis revealed high levels of certain vitamins and signs of a severe allergic reaction on her hands. The rashes on her skin also indicated a latex allergy. An internal examination revealed signs of anaphylactic shock, including pulmonary and laryngeal swelling, raising the question, where did the victim come into contact with latex? Upon re-examining the scene, police recalled the condom found earlier. Testing confirmed that it was a latex condom. If the victim had a known latex allergy, exposure to the latex would undoubtedly trigger a severe reaction. And indeed, the autopsy confirmed that the victim had died from anaphylactic shock. This severe allergic reaction can be life-threatening and occurs when the body reacts violently to an allergen. In this case, the latex in the condom was the direct cause of the victim's death, estimated to have occurred 5 to 6 hours before she was discovered. To verify whether the father-in-law had sexual relations with the victim before her death, police conducted DNA tests on the bedsheets, clothes, and any remaining traces on the victim's body. As expected, the results confirmed that the two had engaged in sexual activity. The pressing question now was whether this relationship had just started recently or had been going on for some time, as it could be closely tied to the circumstances surrounding the victim's death. Identity of the victim and initial testimonies.
As expected, the results confirmed that the two had
The
engaged
victim,
in sexual
Tu Lin,
activity.
was 23 years old and had been married into the Ma family for nearly 3 years. According to neighbors, Tu Lin was always polite and respectful, never causing any trouble or conflict with her in-laws. Her biological family were farmers, and although the Ma family also worked in agriculture, they were far wealthier, making them one of the most affluent families in the area. Tu Lin knew her place, diligently handling household chores and often helping her in-laws with farm work. The neighbors admired her and often remarked on how lucky the Ma family was to have such a dutiful daughter-in-law. However, no one could have imagined that this outwardly harmonious relationship was hiding something much darker between Tu Lin and her father-in-law. Tu Lin's husband, Ma Nam Fong, 25 years old, is currently studying and working in Sichuan. From a young age, Nam Fong was an outstanding student, always striving to do something greater than continuing the family's farming tradition. After graduating from university at 22, he returned home to marry Tu Lin. But soon after, he went back to the city to pursue his education and career further. Nam Fong shared that the city offers far more opportunities compared to the countryside, where physical labor was the norm. Eager to improve his life, he was determined to find a good job in a large company in Sichuan. He has been working there ever since, earning enough to support his father and wife, so they wouldn't have to toil in the fields anymore. His mother had passed away almost a year earlier, leaving his father and Tu Lin alone in the house. Initially, Nam Fong worried that they might feel uncomfortable living together, and he even considered leaving his job to return home. However, his father reassured him that everything was fine, reminding him that neighbors would help and advising him to focus on his career while visiting home regularly. But now, Nam Fong realized that his father's reassurances were merely a cover, allowing his father and wife to grow closer. Moreover, he had become nothing more than a money machine for his family, as they clearly wanted him to continue making money for their comfort. As he spoke, Nam Fong couldn't hide his anguish and disappointment. The father he had always respected, and the wife he loved, had been deceiving him all along. His father, Ma Su, 50 years old, admitted to the police that on the night of August 6th, he and his daughter-in-law, Tu Lin, had engaged in sexual relations. He claimed that he didn't notice any strange reactions on her body at the time because his desire had clouded his judgment. Regarding Tu Lin's death, he insisted that he had no knowledge of it and certainly did not harm her. Ma Suo confessed that the affair had begun around 3 months earlier, after the death of his wife, Lil, almost a year prior. With Nam Fong working far away and only returning home once a month, the opportunity for the affair arose. According to his testimony, it was Tu Lin who made the first advances, often flirting and dressing provocatively around him. At first, he thought she was just teasing, but over time, her actions became more intimate, with her intentionally making physical contact. Although Ma Suo realized the immorality of the situation and even threatened to tell her husband, Tu Lin didn't stop. One night, she entered his room, undressed, and climbed into his bed. Ma Suo, having been without a woman for a long time, couldn't resist the temptation, and from that moment on, they began their illicit relationship. At first, Ma Suo and Tu Lin only engaged in their affair in the bedroom, but later, they began experimenting in other places, such as the living room and even out in the fields for a different thrill. They were always careful to observe their surroundings, making sure no one would catch them in the act. However, the police didn't fully believe Ma Suo's testimony. They suspected that he might be shifting the blame onto Tu Lin to lessen his own punishment, or that the timeline he provided wasn't entirely accurate to cover up the full truth. Verify the statement.
And from that moment on, they began their illicit relationship. At first, Ma Xiong and Tu Lin...
To verify the accuracy of Ma Suo's statements, the police needed to gather more information from the neighbors and those involved. They first took statements from the individuals who initially discovered the incident. Nam Fong testified that on the afternoon of August 6th, he left his hometown for Sichuan. After arriving at around 9 p.m., he realized he had mistakenly taken the wrong set of keys from his home and assumed he had lost the key to his apartment on the bus. He retraced his steps but couldn't find the key. By 1 a.m., he decided to catch a bus back to his hometown. Around 6 a.m., while walking back to his house, Nam Phong ran into Uncle Tuan, his father's close friend, who was out for a walk. Remembering he had promised to give Uncle Tuan some fruit before he left, he invited him to come by the house and collect it. When Nam Phong reached the house, he unlocked the door and noticed that it was still locked up despite it being past 6 a.m. Confused, he wondered if both his father and his wife had gone somewhere. He searched for his wife, but couldn't find her. Then, when he opened his father's bedroom door, he was horrified to see the two of them lying naked, wrapped around each other, fast asleep. Overcome with shock and anger, Nam Phong yelled out, which prompted Uncle Tuan to rush in and see what had happened. From there, everything played out as the police had documented. At first, the police found the situation surrounding Nam Phong's return, especially the coincidence of him grabbing the wrong keys, to be quite suspicious, but they brushed aside those doubts. After calming down, Uncle Tuan began to reveal more about what he knew regarding the Ma family. As a close friend, Uncle Tuan had often helped Ma Suo in various matters, and had previously turned a blind eye to the rumors spreading around the village. In truth, the affair between Ma Suo and his daughter-in-law had been circulating in gossip for quite some time. Although Uncle Tuan couldn't pinpoint exactly when it started, he was certain it had been going on for more than 3 months. He suspected that the relationship didn't begin as recently as Ma Suo had claimed in his testimony to the police. Another rumor, even more serious, circulated about the death of Ma Suo's wife, Lu. She had passed away over a year ago, after slipping and falling by the riverbank near their home during a rainstorm. Lu had weak legs, making it difficult for her to move around. On that fateful day, both Ma Suo and Tu Lin were working in the fields, while Nam Phong was in Sichuan. When Nam Phong returned to mourn his mother, the entire community expressed sympathy for the grieving family. However, as whispers about the illicit relationship between Ma Suo and his daughter-in-law began to surface, the neighbors started to question whether they had a hand in Li's death, possibly to eliminate her and carry on their affair without fear of being caught. Some even speculated that Lu might have discovered their secret and had to be silenced. Initially, the police also harbored suspicions that Li's death was not as straightforward as it seemed, as there were lingering ambiguities they couldn't explain. As a result, they decided to interrogate Ma Suo again on August 8th. During this interrogation, the police warned him that if he didn't confess the truth, they would uncover evidence themselves, and his punishment would be even harsher. Overcome by fear, Ma Suo admitted that his affair with Tu Lin had been ongoing for more than a year, not just 3 months as he had previously claimed. He confessed that he had lied in an attempt to prevent the police from connecting their relationship to Li's death. Ma Suo believed he had successfully concealed everything, but the truth is that nothing stays hidden forever. In society, even when there's nothing to hide, rumors can be fabricated. But in this case, the rumors were based on fact, and eventually, everything came to light. Lu had died on a stormy night. On that evening, both Ma Suo and Tu Lin were home. As usual, Lu needed to use the bathroom, which was located about 10 meters away from the house. Typically, either Ma Suo or Tu Lin would accompany her, as her weak legs made it difficult for her to walk in the dark. But that night, Ma Suo had gone into Tu Lin's room and locked the door. With the heavy rain, he didn't know if Lu had tried to call for them or needed assistance. Ma Suo recalled that he spent the entire night with Tu Lin. The next morning, when he returned to his own room, he realized Lu was missing. After searching everywhere, he discovered her lifeless body floating in the river. By then, it was too late to save her. Ma Suo swore that this was the truth, and that Lu had died from an accidental fall and drowning, not from foul play. Nevertheless, he admitted to feeling guilty, believing that part of the blame fell on him for neglecting her that night. As for Tu Lin's death, Ma Suo initially thought she had died either from an allergic reaction or due to excessive sexual activity. But after checking the condoms he had used, he realized the ones from that night were different. This led him to suspect that someone had taken advantage of his affair with Tu Lin to kill her and frame him for the crime. When the police asked Ma Suo why he was so certain of his innocence, he explained that he and Tu Lin had been involved for over a year. Tu Lin had clearly told him that she was allergic to latex and warned him never to buy latex condoms. During that time, they always engaged in safe sex without any incidents. If this had been their first time being intimate, Ma Suo might not have known about her allergy, but given the frequency of their encounters, it was impossible for him not to know. Therefore, the likelihood that he deliberately harmed her was very low. If Ma Suo had intended to kill Tu Lin, he certainly wouldn't have stayed next to her until morning, making it easy for others to discover the truth. Ma Suo also suggested that if the police still doubted him, they could check with the places where he regularly bought condoms. The store owners would testify that he always requested non-latex condoms. The police followed up and confirmed that the seller remembered Ma Suo very well because, unlike most customers who didn't care about the type of condom, he specifically avoided latex. This made the police temporarily set aside their suspicions of Ma Suo. Revealing the portrait of the culprit. From this, the police concluded that someone must have deliberately switched the condoms to harm Tu Lin. Whoever did this had to know about her latex allergy, and the person most likely to know that detail was someone who had been intimate with her. With these new clues, the police began to suspect that the next person involved might be Nam Fong, Tu Lin's husband. To find evidence, they visited the condom shops and showed the store owners a picture of Nam Fong to see if he had ever purchased condoms there. The results showed that no one resembling Nam Fong had ever bought condoms at those stores. Assuming Nam Fong only discovered the affair between his father and his wife on August 7th. Before that, he would have completely trusted them, leaving no reason for him to harm either of them. The police continued their investigation by questioning the villagers, trying to determine if the rumors about Ma Suo and Tu Lin had reached Nam Fong before the incident. Uncle Tuan, the neighbor who had the most contact with the family, revealed that he had often spoken to Nam Fong about such matters. He recalled one occasion when he casually asked Nam Fong if he had heard any gossip in the village. Nam Fong responded that he rarely came home due to his work, so he hadn't heard anything. Curious, Nam Fong asked Uncle Tuan what the rumors were. When Uncle Tuan mentioned the rumors about his father and his wife, Nam Fong immediately dismissed them as fabrications. He expressed no interest, stating that people could say whatever they wanted, but he neither believed nor cared about such talk. Nam Fong even told Uncle Tuan that, as a close friend of his father, he shouldn't believe in such rumors. At the time, Uncle Tuan thought Nam Fong had a point, as both he and Nam Fong viewed Ma Suo as a respectable, upstanding man, while Tu Lin was known for her proper manners. No one had ever seen her being intimate with anyone besides her husband. However, the police believed that, despite Nam Fong's outward denial, the rumors may have already planted seeds of doubt in his mind, just as they had in Uncle Tuan. Even if he didn't openly admit it, the rumors likely haunted him. Uncle Tuan insisted that he couldn't imagine Nam Fong being cold-hearted enough to kill his wife and frame his father. However, he did suspect someone else, Tong Tien, Tu Lin's ex-boyfriend. Although there was no direct evidence, Uncle Tuan recalled that before she got married, Tu Lin had been in a relationship with Tong Tien, a young man from the village. On August 10th, the police split into two teams, one to investigate Nam Fong's movements, and the other to question Tong Tien, to verify whether Nam Fong was lying about accidentally taking the wrong keys. The police visited the bus station where he had traveled. They confirmed that on the day of the incident, Nam Fong had boarded a bus to Sichuan at 4 p.m. and returned to his hometown at 1 a.m. the following morning. While this suggested that his return was accidental, it was also possible that he had planned it to cover up the truth. If Nam Fong hadn't bought condoms in the village, he might have purchased them in Sichuan. Thus, at 9 a.m. on August 10th, the police continued their investigation in Sichuan and visited the dormitory where Nam Fong was staying. As for Tong Tien, To Lin's ex, he admitted that they had been classmates and dated for nearly 2 years. After graduating, both of them decided not to attend college due to poor academic performance and started working instead. The difficulties and hardships of life gradually wore down their relationship. At the time, Tong Tien believed that they both had too many responsibilities to continue their romance. So they agreed to put their relationship on hold. He promised that when he was more stable, he would marry Tu Lin, and she had promised to wait for him. However, only a few months later, Tong Tien heard that Tu Lin had started seeing Nam Fong, a man with more education and a better career than him. At that point, Nam Fong was still attending university and was extremely busy. Tong Tien couldn't understand why Tu Lin would choose someone like Nam Fong. Frustrated, he arranged a meeting with her to get some clarity. Tu Lin explained that her family wanted her to marry Nam Fong because he had a promising future and could provide a stable life for her. Although she still had feelings for Tong Tien, she felt she had no choice but to follow her family's wishes and asked him to understand her decision. From that moment, Tong Tien began to harbor deep resentment toward Tu Lin and the Mok family. Seeing the woman he once loved living a comfortable life while he remained in poverty only fueled his anger. He was especially furious as he remembered the promises they made to each other. Initially, Tu Lin had told him that she only married Nam Fong because of her family's wishes and that she still loved him, which gave Tong Tien hope that he could win her back. However, after she married into the Mok family, Tu Lin distanced herself from the young men in the village, likely to maintain her reputation. Heartbroken and frustrated, Tong Tien spiraled into drinking, ignoring his family's attempts to help. At his lowest point, Tu Lin showed no concern for him, and that was when he realized her true nature and let go of any lingering affection. In recent years, Tong Tien had focused on his work and even started seeing another woman. He was adamant that Tu Lin was no longer part of his life, and he had no reason to harm her. Moreover, during their relationship, Tu Lin had been adamant about preserving her purity, and they had never been intimate. Tong Tien firmly stated that he had no knowledge of her latex allergy. He even added that if anyone wanted to know more about her, they should ask Nam Fong, as her husband would know best. Meanwhile, at 1 p.m. that same day, the police arrived at Nam Fong's apartment in Sichuan to continue their investigation. They visited various condom stores, both near and far, asking if anyone could identify Nam Fong. Finally, at a store about 6 kilometers from his apartment, a shopkeeper recognized him, despite wearing a mask on the day of purchase. Nam Fong's distinctive eyebrow scar gave him away. Just as the police suspected, Nam Fong had bought latex condoms in bulk over 2 weeks earlier. This confirmed, without a doubt, that he was the culprit. His method was clever, as it allowed him to commit the crime without ever directly involving himself. The killer and the perfect plan. On August 11th, the police summoned both Ma Suo and Nam Fong, along with key witnesses, for questioning. In a surprising turn, Ma Suo confessed to being the one responsible for Tu Lin's death and begged the police to close the case, asking them to convict him. However, the police were skeptical. They believed that Ma Suo had figured out that his son was the true mastermind behind the murder and was now trying to take the blame to protect him, knowing that his own actions had set everything in motion. As the police watched closely, they noticed that Nam Fong seemed visibly shocked by his father's confession. It was as if he hadn't expected his lecherous father to go so far as to take the fall for him. Seeing this, the police decided to pretend to go along with Ma Suo's confession. They presented evidence suggesting that he was the real culprit to gauge Nam Fong's reaction. Just as they suspected, Nam Fong couldn't stay silent any longer and finally confessed to being the murderer, agreeing to reveal the full truth. Nam Fong explained that ever since he married Tu Lin, his family had lived in harmony and happiness. He continued his studies and work in Sichuan, only returning home when he received the devastating news that his mother had drowned. Despite the pain, he set aside his work to attend her funeral. That was the longest time he had stayed at home, about a week. During that time, he overheard troubling rumors about an inappropriate relationship between his father and his wife. At first, these rumors enraged him, but he didn't dwell on them, as he was preoccupied with his mother's funeral. Both his father and his wife appeared deeply mournful, and he chose to believe them over the whispers from the village. As time passed, the grief over his mother's death slowly faded, and life returned to normal. His father and Tu Lin continued living together, and Nam Fong trusted them completely. However, in early February of this year, when he returned home again, the neighbors once more warned him about his father and wife's illicit relationship. This time, Nam Fong took the rumors more seriously, particularly in connection with his mother's death. Still, when he returned home, both his father and his wife behaved as if everything was normal. Raising no suspicion, he concluded that he might have been overthinking things, falling prey to baseless gossip. By June, Nam Fong decided to visit his hometown unannounced to uncover the truth. That night, he secretly spied on the house, hoping to catch any sign that would confirm his suspicions. At around 11 p.m., he heard unmistakable sounds of intimacy coming from inside. And to his horror, it was his own father and his wife. Overwhelmed by shock and pain, Nam Fong fled to the city without confronting them. From that moment, the rumors about their affair and his mother's death consumed his thoughts. He became certain that his mother's death was linked to his father and Tu Lin, whether directly or indirectly, with the belief that there's no smoke without fire. Nam Fong's hatred for the two of them grew immensely. He felt completely betrayed, both emotionally and in terms of trust. Here he was, working tirelessly far from home to provide for his father and wife, only to be deceived in the most despicable way. From that moment on, Nam Fong devised a plan for revenge. He didn't just want to kill them as payback for his mother and himself. He wanted their sins exposed, for them to lose all honor and be shamed by the world. However, Nam Fong realized that if he killed them directly, he would be caught and convicted. He began to think about their weaknesses that could lead to a more natural death. Then he remembered something unique about Tu Lin on their wedding night. When he used a condom, she had shown signs of discomfort. At first, he thought it was just because it was her first time, but he soon noticed that her skin became itchy and red, particularly where it came into contact with the condom. She developed rashes and hives, and she complained of a burning sensation in her genital area. That was when Nam Fong realized his wife was allergic to latex, an Achilles heel that he could exploit in his revenge plan. Nam Fong recounted that the first time he discovered his wife's latex allergy, he immediately stopped what he was doing to avoid harming her. The next morning, he took Tu Lin to the doctor, who confirmed her latex allergy. The doctor warned them that from then on, they would need to switch to non-latex condoms, as the allergy could potentially be life-threatening for Tu Lin. This warning stuck with Nam Fong, and later became a key element in his plot for revenge. When Nam Fong began to suspect that his father and Tu Lin were having an affair, he meticulously planned his retaliation. During a visit home that lasted nearly 2 weeks, he made a point of staying longer than usual to prevent his father and wife from being alone together. He closely monitored them, ensuring they had no opportunity to be intimate. Wherever he went, he made sure to take one of them with him, and even at night, he would hold his wife close and remain half awake, always alert. During that time, he noticed how irritated and restless both his father and Tu Lin became, which only strengthened his belief that their affair was real. Nam Fong's plan was progressing perfectly as he deliberately created tension between the two. He knew that after he left, both his father and his wife would be desperate and would soon give in to their desires. With that in mind, on the morning of August 6th, he sneaked into his father's room and found his stash of condoms. He then swapped them with the latex condoms he had purchased weeks earlier in Sichuan. To avoid suspicion, Nam Fong devised a scenario where he pretended to have taken the wrong set of keys, giving him an excuse to return home without raising alarms. This allowed him to quietly unlock the door, catch them in the act without waking them, and have a witness to back him up. On his way back, he even invited Uncle Tuan to come along. making sure everything would go according to plan. By bringing Uncle Tuan along, Nam Phong ensured that he had a credible witness to the discovery, making the entire situation seem less premeditated and more accidental, and thus shielding himself from suspicion. When Nam Phong heard his father admit to the truth about his mother's death, he still couldn't believe it. Whether his father and Tu Lin were directly or indirectly responsible for his mother's death, they were still to blame in his eyes. Nam Phong believed that his father and wife had abandoned his elderly, frail mother just to satisfy their own desires, which he found unforgivably cruel. For that reason, Nam Phong decided not only to kill them, but also to expose the truth, ensuring that they paid the price through public shame and disgrace. Sentence and paid. Nam Phong had no regrets about his actions. He believed that if no one else was willing to seek justice for his mother, then he would do it himself, even if it cost him his own future. After hearing his son's confession, Ma Su, Nam Phong's father, was filled with deep remorse and begged the court for leniency on his son's behalf. He admitted that all the wrongdoing stemmed from him, and he was willing to take full responsibility, even sacrificing himself so that Nam Phong could have a second chance at life, given that he was still young and had a promising career ahead of him. However, Nam Phong rejected his father's sacrifice. He firmly stated that when he decided to kill, he was fully prepared for the worst possible consequences. He asked the court to ensure that justice was served, and he did not seek forgiveness or a reduced sentence. On August 15, 1990, the Sichuan People's Court in China sentenced Ma Nam Phong to 25 years in prison for indirect murder, and Ma Suan to 5 years for sexual misconduct. A once happy family was now completely shattered, all because of fleeting physical desires. This case serves as a reminder that what separates humans from animals is the ability to control our base instincts. In this tragedy, the individuals involved allowed their primal desires to take over, leading them to actions that defied all moral boundaries. The father-in-law and daughter-in-law could not resist their base urges, breaking the ethical code, while the son chose a path of cruelty, plotting to kill and conceal his crime. In the end, they all faced the tragic consequences of their actions. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Decoder Box for more true crime stories and thrilling cases. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.